Welcome to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into something that's reshaping how businesses operate across Europe. AI chatbots for customer service automation with a fascinating focus on Tampear, Finland. Sam, this isn't just another tech trend, right? There's real compliance complexity baked into this.
Absolutely, Alex. The EU AI Act has completely changed the game. Tampere is particularly interesting because it's a tech hub, 850 software and tech companies, but they're operating in a regulated environment that most regions haven't figured out yet. You can't just deploy a chatbot and hope for the best anymore.
So what's driving this urgency in Tampere specifically? Is it just regulation, or are there real business pressures making chatbots essential?
Both, but the business case is incredibly strong. Tampere has a thriving manufacturing, healthcare, and tourism sector. Finnish consumers expect chat responses within 2 hours, 78% do, according to recent data, and companies are struggling to meet that with human teams alone. Add seasonal spikes, multi-language requirements, and you've got a staffing nightmare.
Multi-language is a huge point. They're not just serving Finland, right? They're competing across Nordic and international markets.
Exactly. A customer service agent in Tampere costs $2,100 to $2,800 per month, plus employer contributions. A single chatbot handling 200 to 300 inbound inquiries daily can pay for itself in 12 to 18 months. But here's the kicker. It's not just cost savings. Deloitte data shows 45% reduction in operating costs, but also 67% faster response times and 38% higher customer satisfaction scores.
That satisfaction metric is interesting because chatbots have this reputation for frustrating users. What's changing that perception?
Modern conversational AI is genuinely better at understanding intent. But more importantly, the smart deployment strategy is having the bot handle initial triage and routine inquiries, refund requests, order status, FAQs, and then routing complex issues to humans. You're not replacing agents, you're giving them 52% more capacity to focus on high-value interactions.
So it's about augmentation rather than replacement. Let's talk about the compliance angle because that's where a lot of companies get stuck. The EU AI Act is the elephant in the room here.
Right. The EU AI Act categorizes customer service chatbots differently depending on their risk level. If you're automating lead qualification or making decisions that significantly affect users, you're in a higher risk category. That means transparency requirements, documentation, human oversight protocols. It's not trivial.
What does that actually look like in practice for a Tampere SME? Are we talking about hiring compliance officers?
Not necessarily hiring, but you need governance frameworks in place. You need to document your AI system's training data, its bias testing, performance metrics, and crucially, your human-in-the-loop processes. For SMEs, that's where consulting becomes invaluable. You're building a compliance roadmap that integrates with your business operations.
And there's a local context here too. Finland has its own AI strategy through 2030 that actually prioritizes AI adoption in customer service, right?
Yes, the Finnish government is actively encouraging this. What's remarkable is that 67% of Tampere SMEs are already exploring or implementing AI tools, compared to just 54% across the broader Nordic region. There's genuine momentum, but also awareness that you can't cut corners on governance.
Let's go deeper into AI lead qualification, because that sounds like a competitive game changer beyond just support.
It's huge for Tampere's B2B sectors. Software, machinery, consulting firms. A well-trained chatbot asks discovery questions about budget, timeline, decision-maker, the things that qualify or disqualify a prospect fast. McKinsey data shows this reduces sales cycle length by 25 to 35% and improves lead quality significantly.
So the chatbot becomes a first-pass filter, which is smarter than having a human waste time on unqualified leads.
Exactly. And because you're qualifying at scale and in multiple languages, you're capturing opportunities you'd otherwise miss. But again, the EU AI Act requires transparency here. If the bot is making automated decisions about lead qualification, users need to know they're interacting with AI and have a path to human review.
That transparency piece, is that a compliance checkbox, or does it actually improve customer experience?
Both. Transparency builds trust. Finnish consumers are generally tech-savvy and appreciate honesty. When you disclose that an AI is handling initial screening and a human will review priority leads, customers are often more receptive than if they discover later that an algorithm made a decision affecting them.
What about the omnichannel side? The blog mentions conversational AI across multiple channels.
That's where it gets strategically important. A Tampere retailer or service provider needs consistent customer experience, whether someone reaches them via chat, email, social media, or phone. A unified conversational AI platform that maintains context across channels is powerful, but it also amplifies compliance obligations. You're managing customer data across touchpoints, so GDPR plus AI Act governance becomes critical.
GDPR was already complicated. Now you're layering AI Act requirements on top.
Yes, and they interact. You're collecting conversation data to train your chatbot, which is personal data under GDPR, and you're using AI to process that data, which triggers AI Act obligations. You need legal and technical alignment, not just compliance theater, but actual integrated governance.
So for a Tampere business considering this in 2025 or 2026, what's the practical roadmap?
Start with a clear use case, maybe lead qualification or high-volume FAQ support. Assess your risk level under the AI Act. If it's higher risk, invest in consulting upfront to design governance properly. Pilot the system with real data, test bias and performance, document everything. Then scale with confidence. Don't deploy first and figure out compliance later. That's expensive and risky.
And the ROI timeline you mentioned, 12 to 18 months for cost recovery, does that hold if you're doing it right, with proper governance?
It can, yes. Governance costs are real, but they're usually 10 to 15% of total implementation spend. The 45% cost reduction in customer service operations is solid enough that governance overhead doesn't derail the business case for most organizations.
What about the risk of getting this wrong? What's the downside if a Tampere company deploys without proper compliance?
Regulatory scrutiny is increasing. The EU is actively enforcing the AI Act, and Finland's regulators are no exception. You could face fines, forced system shutdowns, reputational damage, and the cost of retrofitting compliance, way worse than doing it right from the start. Plus, if your AI system causes customer harm or discriminates, you're liable.
So this is investment in risk mitigation as much as capability building.
Absolutely. Forward-thinking Tamper businesses are already doing this. They're seeing it as competitive advantage. They can deploy faster, with more confidence, and better customer trust because they've built governance into the foundation.
Sam, last question. What's the biggest misconception you see about AI chatbots for customer service?
That they're primarily about cost-cutting. Yes, cost reduction is real, but the bigger win is capability expansion. You're handling more customer inquiries, faster, while freeing your best people to solve hard problems. It's not about doing more with less. It's about doing different work with the same team.
That's a really important reframe. Well, for listeners wanting to dive deeper into Tampere's specific market context, EU AI Act compliance frameworks and actual case studies, head over to EtherLink AI and find the full article. We've covered a lot of ground today, from regulatory requirements to business ROI to practical deployment strategy. Thanks for breaking it down, Sam.
Always happy to dig into this, Alex. It's a fascinating time for AI adoption in regulated markets. Tampere's story is worth paying attention to because it shows how compliance and innovation can actually accelerate together.
Great insight. Thanks again, and thanks to our listeners. Until next time on EtherLink AI Insights, stay curious.